All right. So, you sent over this fascinating stuff about AI
Uh-huh.
and about something called graph constrained reasoning, or GCR.
Right.
And I gotta say, the name alone, it really makes me think of like some seriously futuristic, advanced computer brain kind of thing.
Yeah.
But luckily, you're here to help break it down for us.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And honestly, it's really not as complicated as it sounds. Like the core idea is actually pretty elegant when you get down to it.
Okay, good. Because, from what I've been able to gather reading through this stuff, it seems like the big challenge, at least as it's been framed,
Mm.
is that traditional AI has a hard time um, combining different types of knowledge. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good way to think about it is like we have LLMs, right?
Right.
Those large language models, they can, write and chat almost like a real person.
Mm-hmm.
They're incredible at generating text, but they don't always get their facts straight.
Right, right.
Like they can be a little shaky on the factual accuracy.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you've got knowledge graphs, which are, all about structure and accuracy, very good with facts. But the downside is they can be super rigid, right? They
Yeah.
lack that flexibility that LLMs have.
Right. So each has their own kind of strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how does GCR fit into all of this?
So that's where GCR comes in. It's essentially like building a bridge between these two approaches.
Okay.
So you can think of it like this. Imagine a massive, like just incredibly well-organized library, right? That's your knowledge graph.
Hmm.
And then you have this gifted storyteller, right? That's your LLM. But this storyteller has access to this entire library and has to make sure that every story they tell is backed up by the facts in those books. That's basically GCR in a nutshell.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So the knowledge graph is setting the boundaries, the factual boundaries, and then the LLM is getting to be creative, but within those lines.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So then how does that actually work? Like, obviously, we don't need to get too technical here,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah. So essentially, the knowledge graph, it provides like the framework and the rules. Like
Right.
these are the hard limits, right?
Mm.
And then the LLM, it takes care of the reasoning and generates the output, like the text or whatever it's producing, but it constantly has to check itself against those facts that are stored in the knowledge graph.
So it's like the LLM is constantly going back to this massive database to make sure that it's not,
Exactly.
making stuff up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having like a really strict fact checker.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then that has some pretty massive implications for, different fields, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest things is the accuracy and the reliability it's significantly improved with GCR because it's not just making things up as it goes along, right? It has that knowledge graph as its guide. So it's much less likely to hallucinate or, even perpetuate biases that it might have learned from the data.
That's huge.
Yeah. Which could lead to AI that is way more versatile
Yeah.
and capable of handling much more complex tasks because we can actually trust it.
I mean, yeah, this has implications for like, medical diagnoses and all sorts of like things where accuracy is key. I mean, this could be revolutionary for some fields, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So is this a totally new way of approaching AI, or are there other examples of this kind of like two heads are better than one kind of thing happening in the AI world right now?
That's a good question. I think it's definitely part of a larger movement that we're seeing. We've talked about CodexGraph and GPTSwarm before. These are great examples of how researchers are kind of stepping outside the box and combining different AI techniques together and getting really impressive results. So it seems like the AI community as a whole is realizing that, maybe integrating these different types of knowledge and reasoning, maybe that's the key to really unlocking AI's true potential.
That's really fascinating, honestly. It makes you wonder what other like combinations are out there.
Right.
Okay, so before we wrap up, can you give us like a real world example of how GCR could be used?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say you're planning a trip, right?
Okay.
And you're using an AI to help you. With GCR, this AI could tap into this massive knowledge graph that has just like everything. Geographical data, transportation options, points of interest, hotel availability, you name it, it's in there. Even like it could access your previous trips and figure out what you like and didn't like.
Oh,
And then using all that information, it could generate this amazing itinerary that's not only accurate and well structured, but also totally personalized to you.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that gets me excited. This is really cool stuff. It makes you really think about what the future of AI could look like. I
Hmm.
mean, combining all these different approaches seems incredibly powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the really interesting thing is that this idea of combining different approaches, it's not even limited to AI, right?
That's true.
Like, think about how we as humans, how we learn and make decisions.
Yeah,
We use intuition, we use logic, we use external information, and we're constantly cross-referencing, adapting, changing our minds. GCR kind of reflects that in a way, don't you think?
that's a really good point. I've never thought of it that way. So, I mean, who knows what other amazing combinations are out there waiting to be discovered,
Mhm.
right? It feels
Mhm.
like we're just scratching the surface.
Exactly.
This is really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.